नमस्कार, प्रणाम। मैं आशीष मिश्रा आप सभी का वातायन परिवार में हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं, अभिनंदन करता हूं। जैसा कि हम अवगत हैं, लगभग पिछले 18 से 19 माह से वातायन, क्षमा कीजिएगा, यूट्यूब पर ऑन था वो। जैसा कि हम अवगत हैं, लगभग पिछले 18 से 19 माह से वातायन हर सप्ताह इसी प्रकार की गोष्ठियां करता है। यह इसका 75वां संस्करण है। इन गोष्ठियों में हम कभी नवोदित रचनाकारों को बुलाते हैं, कभी साहित्य के पुरोधाओं से बातचीत करते हैं, कभी किसी विशेष पुस्तक या संवाद पर परिचर्चा होती है, तो कभी पृथक रूप से ऐसे रचनाकारों को याद करते हैं जो स्मृति शेष हैं। इसी श्रृंखला में आज का यह कार्यक्रम अपने आप में अपने श्रेणी का तीसरा साहित्यिक गीत श्रृंखला की कड़ी है। इसमें आज हम लोग हमारे साथ जो प्रस्तोता हैं वे हैं श्री जय विश्वदेवा जी। वे सामा आर्ट्स नेटवर्क के मुख्य अधिकारी और कलात्मक निदेशक हैं। दक्षिण एशिया क्षेत्रों में दशकों से कलात्मक परंपराओं के प्रणेता रहे हैं, अधिवक्ता रहे हैं। आज वे बात करेंगे चिन्मयी और जोएल जी से। तो पूरा ये पटल, पूरा वातायन परिवार, ये प्रांगण आप सभी का के आगमन को अभिभूत करता है, आप सभी का स्वागत करता है। और अब जय जी, आप अपने आप को अनम्यूट कर सकते हैं और आप फिर बात कर सकते हैं।
Thank you. Namaskar, everyone. It's a very interesting session. We have a very large international audience today. This session will take place partly in Hindi, partly in English, because the make of the program is universal, because through my international association, I've engaged a lot of people who are non-Hindi speakers, but appreciate the literature, the music of India. And we have with us two outstanding musicians, singer-songwriters, composers performing today in India. They're special because they are doing something that no one has done before. And I've had the privilege of meeting Chinmayi Tripathi little over 11 years ago, when she was with Songju, a record label that she was working with as an A&R. And there I developed a rapport with her. And then she told me that she was interested in a special poetry project, and she mentioned what it was. And I think during the years that I've known her, she has evolved this project beautifully. And I had the privilege of inviting Chinmayi and Joel Mukherjee in 2018 when they visited UK as a part of Women in Music Festival, in which they contributed some outstanding works. And I would like to welcome Joel and Chinmayi to this program. Can you hear? You're mute. Joel and Chinmayi, you're mute. Can we have your... I think you're mute. Can we have you on speaker, please? I think there's Chinmayi and Joel are on mute. Ashish, Chinmayi and Joel are on mute.
Yeah, I'm trying to ask them to unmute. I can't unmute them myself. We can only request them. Joel, can you hear us? Okay, they're doing.
Whilst this is happening, let me tell you a little bit about Chinmayi. Chinmayi has been for number of... No, hello, Chinmayi, can you hear me?
1 second. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
So
I guess.
thank you very much, Jay. I just want to thank you once for the wonderful welcome, and we are thrilled to be a part of Vatayan today and on this beautiful occasion. Thank you very much, Divya ji, for inviting us. Yes.
Thank you, Chinmayi. Chinmayi's work, as I've just mentioned, it's special because in my music life, nobody has been able to do what they are doing now. That the originality in their work by composing music for some outstanding poets of India, put to music, compose some of the most outstanding music that has come from the folk and classical tradition. And I want to ask Chinmayi how she came about conceiving the nucleus of this poetry project by featuring the works of India's outstanding poets.
Sure. So the journey started a few years ago when, this question kept striking my head every once in a while that, why don't we hear great poetry as part of music? We have such fantastic literature, such beautiful heritage of poetry in our Indian tradition, in Hindi, in Urdu. But everybody keeps complaining that the lyrics of our songs, whatever we hear over radio, over television, is really sad, and you know there is no beauty in it. There is no poetry in it. So this idea was actually, you know, uh, in my head that, I want to create an album which is based on Hindi poetry. And since Chayavad poetry, Chayavadi Kavita was something that I was very close to, the poetry of Nirala, Mahadevi Verma, Harivansh Rai Bachchan Sahab, all these great legendary poets. I wanted to start off with that. And that is when, I approached a crowdfunding platform. This was in 2013 or 14, if I'm not wrong. And they really liked the idea that, why don't you create a compilation of such songs which is based on Indian poetry? Because let's do it together. Let's create a fund for it and let's do this project together because it has some social relevance as well. You are trying to preserve great literature through music. And they were into, doing such social projects on their platform. So I said, why not? And that journey began. And I did a crowdfunding campaign. I raised close to 6.5, 7 lakhs. That was the amount I required to do an album. And I completed an entire album that was with the help of Joel Mukherjee because he came on board wonderfully as a producer and we also got engaged at that time. But so there were two parallel journeys going on. तो साथ साथ में हम लोगों ने ये म्यूजिक क्रिएट किया और then Times Music released this entire album. The purpose was that, how do we bring brilliant, beautiful poetry, their imagination, the imagination of great poets in music and bring it live to a younger audience as well.
That was, I think, one of the most important things.
Yes.
Because the younger generation in today's time, I think, is not so close and they're not really aware of our heritage, rich heritage, and the kind of poetry that our country has produced. So I think by doing the Music and Poetry Project, we kind of tried to make more contemporary interpretations of these poems through music so that they could also enjoy and at the same time be aware of what our heritage is consisting of.
Yes. So
Chinmayi,
what is great is that, sorry.
How did you conceive the selection of the poems that you were to give music for? Was it difficult? You chose 6 poems by some outstanding poets.
Yes.
What made you select these poems? Could you give us an insight as to how you did it?
So by reading their work, whatever resonated as a musician with me, and my musical mind, whatever little little bit of music I have in me, whatever resonated with it, I connected with it. There are certain poems which are, so musical by default that you don't need to compose them. Music just flows through them. And one such poem is what we'll begin our session with. It's Jag Tujhko Dur Jana. That was the first song that I had composed, and it's a beautiful poem. And the moment I read it, I knew that I want to sing it. I want to present it as a song. So it happens very, intuitively. There is no logic or science that at least I could apply to it, because, there is no way I can judge the works of such great poets. There's no way we can determine that, okay, this is a better poem and, that is not a great poem. Everything is great. Everything is beautiful to us. Whatever, we read and we are able to connect with it as musicians, then we decide to create it as a song. That is
I think it would be a good idea to start with this song, and then we'll perhaps go further into our discussion.
Yes, so we'll present a couple of songs from our repertoire. One is a beautiful poem, Jag Tujhko Dur Jana by Mahadevi Verma. And the other one is Rashmi Rathi, which is a great work of poetry by Ramdhari Singh Dinkar. It's a thick book of poetry, it is the story of Karn through a poem. And if you read it, it flows like a river. If you read the entire poem, it's a beautiful story. And we have just taken a part of it, the third chapter of Rashmi Rathi. So we will present Jag Tujhko Dur Jana first, which is one of the most inspiring poems for us also. Whenever we feel low and we hear this song of ours, we get motivated and we feel inspired. And the words are बांध लेंगे क्या तुझे ये मोम के बंधन सजीले, पथ की बाधाएं बनेंगे तितलियों के पर रंगीले।
वाह।
तू ना अपनी छाँव को अपने लिए कारा बनाना। Don't make your shadow your own prison. Be free. Rise above your, whatever limitations you have. Rise above everything. And I think it's very valid for the kind of world we are living in right now, with so many issues, so many problems with corona and everything, creating a dark cloud above our heads. What is going to happen? What is not going to happen? This poem inspires us to rise above all the fears and be free of fear. So here is the song.
चिर सजग आंखें चिर सजग आंखें उन्हें आज कैसा व्यस्त बाना जाग तुझको दूर जाना जाग तुझको दूर जाना चले हृदय में आज चाहे कंप या प्रलय के आंसुओं में मौन अलसत व्योम
हृदय में आज चाहे कंप या प्रलय के आंसुओं में मौन अलसित व्योम आज के आलोक को आज भी आलोक को डोले तिमिरती और छाया जाग तुझको दूर जाना रे ग ग रे प प नि ध प म ग रे ग सा रे ग ग रे प प नि ध प म ग रे ग सा रे म प नि नि सा रे सा नि ध प म ग रे रे म प नि नि सा बांध लेंगे क्या तुझे ये बांध लेंगे क्या तुझे ये मोह के बंधन सजीले पथ की बाधाएं बनेंगे तितलियों के पर रंगीले धूना अपनी छाँव को धूना अपनी छाँव को अपने लिए कारा बनाना जाग तुझको दूर जाना जाग तुझको दूर जाना जाग तुझको दूर जाना
Wonderful. So refreshing, I must say that the composition, which I believe has both the classical and folk foundation, and you're using both a Western and a traditional instrument, which is quite refreshing to listen to. Tell me, how did you conceive music for this particular poem of Mahadevi?
So this is, as I said, the emotion, we basically try to go by the emotion of the poem. Whatever music, we conceive as artists, it is basically related to the core emotion of the poet, and we just try to relate with it. So this is inherently a very, very inspiring poem, and it is very deep, very meaningful. So we wanted to create music which is uplifting and which can, seep into your soul, which is not something motivating in a conventional sense, but something which deeply inspires you, deeply connects with your soul and motivates you. So this is in Rag Desh, right? And the rag and the composition comes naturally.
And I think as far as the instrumentation is concerned, something that we always think, and I mean, it doesn't necessarily happen, by really thinking very deep about it. But I think it's a very instinctive thing that, mean, since we hear music from all over the world, and by nature, they're all basically the same. I mean, the instruments might be different, the intonations might be different, but at the end, it's all the same. And it transcends any boundaries. So when we are trying to compose or produce the track, so we keep in mind about using different kind of instruments. So, I mean, in the original recording of the song, we had used the cello as well as a proper orchestrated section for the song, which would have otherwise not come in naturally as part of the song, because in Indian classical, we don't have the tradition of using such instruments. Although nowadays there are a lot of compositions, there's a lot of fusion work happening. Although we don't, I mean, I would not choose to call our music as fusion music, but I mean, whatever instrument comes naturally as part of the composition, as part of the thought process for the poem, we instinctively go for that.
Chinmayi, you mentioned Rag Desh.
Yeah.
I mean, you as a child, as a young child, you started learning. Your parents encouraged you to learn classical music, but you were not conversant with the tradition then. You did not evolve then, but I think your evolvement has come much later, that you started appreciating classical music. But at your young age, you were not doing that.
Yes.
And since you have conceived this project and you have gone deeper into it, does your training in the early years become more relevant now? You're using the rag-based composition?
Oh yes, definitely. Because whatever music you are right that as a child I hated it, and I did not want to learn from my guru. I used to be really scared of her as a child. I was in second standard when I was sent to learn music, and so it took me a long time to start appreciating the nuances and the core of classical music. But slowly it happened. Everybody has a journey, how the birth of a musician really happens inside you when you start learning music. So it happened gradually, over a period of time. And now, though, it is, if I did not have the base of ragas, I don't know what I would have done. I would have still composed music, because innately, we have some music in us. But now, because of the little bit of knowledge that I have, it becomes much easier. And then, to create music, the production, it is really required that you understand what kind of music it is, what kind of rag it is, what
The
kind
finer
of
subtleties
finer
of the notes,
subtleties
yes.
of it you understand. And also the mood is very strongly related to the rag. So to create that, you need to have knowledge. And I feel sad that I should have learned it much better, and I should have taken in much more knowledge in my earlier years. But it
Chinmayi,
was meant to happen in a practical way, like this.
Chinmayi, it's not too late. I mean, you must thank your teacher, Dr. Alaknanda Palnitkar,
Yes.
for having introduced classical music, and you must also thank your parents for pushing you in the early period.
Definitely.
But one must never be scared. I don't think scared at any age to learn music. And since you have the background, I think you just have to call in your training that you had, and you're putting it into good use. Like you've just composed this beautiful music by using Rag Desh for this beautiful poetry of Mahadevi Varma.
Yes.
Now, I mean, this can be your template, basically.
Absolutely. And the good thing is that as a musician, you can always be a student till the age of 70, 80. You can keep learning and keep evolving. As any artist, I mean, there's no age for learning. So we are also constantly grasping, trying to learn whatever is new. Joel is, he also did not train into Hindustani classical music, but by instinctively, intuitively, he was constantly learning because his parents were doing riyaz. So, but now he's reading books on Ragopedia and trying to grasp the core of it. So it happens. Everybody has their own journey and their own time. When do they want to pick what?
Yeah, but Joel also is a much aware musician composer I've met through you, and also the the Western classical training must be of immense help, because it has broadened his horizon. And to come back to using Indian classical tradition through you and through the work that demands, for example, the next song that you're going to sing, please lead us into how this particular song was, the music for it was conceived.
Yes. So Rashmi Rathi by Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, it's an epic in itself. We were told for a program we wanted to compose the music and create a song out of it. It had come as a requirement from the organizer. But when we started reading it, earlier I had read Rashmi Rathi because the book was lying in my house, and my mother is also a teacher of Hindi literature. But I never read it from that point of view. But when we composed certain sections of it, I realized how beautiful it is and how beautiful the poetry is, the imagery is, the selection of words and the flow of the language is. And ये एक खंड काव्य है, मतलब इसमें I think 11 chapters हैं, and so it's a book on its own, and through this book it is presenting the scene of Mahabharat and the journey of Karn into it. The way Karn has been presented by Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, nobody else has ever done that in literature, at least to my knowledge.
Actually, someone has in Bengali literature.
Okay.
There was a very well-known poet called Michael Madhusudan Dutt,
Achha.
who also wrote Meghnad Baut Kapo, where Karn was presented in a completely different light than
different avatars.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great. So I didn't know that. So so it's an extremely thrilling book. It's like a as it unfolds and it creates this aggression and this sense of deep rising inside you, the motivation and the spirit rises inside you. So it's a beautiful book. If anybody of if you get a chance to read it, if you've not read it, it's a beautiful selection. When you have to refer to Hindi poetry and especially Chayawadi poetry. So again, this chapter is the third chapter that we are doing, and the premise is we will just present with the song.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay. तो ये जो अध्याय है ये पांडवों के बारे में है, और यहाँ से शुरू होता है कि हो गया पूर्ण अज्ञातवास, हो गया पूर्ण अज्ञातवास, पांडव लौटे वन से साहस, पांडव लौटे वन से साहस, नस नस में तेज प्रवाह ली, नस नस में तेज प्रवाह ली, कुछ और नया उत्साह ली, कुछ और नया उत्साह ली। सच है विपत्ति जब आती है, कायर को ही बचाती है, शूरमा नहीं विचलित होते, क्षणिक नहीं सच होते, विघ्नों को गले लगाते हैं, कांटों में राह बनाते हैं, तो कौन बता तेरा धर्म है क्या, तू कौन बता तेरा धर्म है क्या, तू कौन बता तेरा धर्म है क्या, तू कौन बता तेरा कर्म है क्या। जग में, एक सके वीर नर के मग में, हम ठोक ठेलता है जब नर, पर्वत के जाते पाँव खड़, मानव जब जोर लगाता है पर्वत पानी बन जाता है। तू कौन बता तेरा धर्म क्या, कौन बता तेरा धर्म क्या, तू कौन बता तेरा धर्म क्या, तू कौन बता तेरा धर्म क्या। वाटिका और वन नहीं आराम और रण नहीं बरसान, भड़ा तप अखंड पौरुष के है साधन प्रचल, वन में प्रसून तो खिलते हैं, बागों में शाल न मिलते हैं, बागों में शाल मिलते हैं, बागों में शाल न मिलते। सगम सगम पगम पनी म पनी सा पानी सा ग सा नि पानी पम पम ग पम ग म ग पम ग म ग पम ग म ग सा।
Wonderful, wonderful. Chinmayi, it's I mean, each of your song composition, the music composition, the words are already there, written by these great poets. But this challenge that you have taken up has a lot of work involved. For example, you have to take permission from the author or the author's family before you can step forward.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about getting permission, consents to move forward with the song and the music? What did you have to go through?
Oh, a lot. It's not funny. It's not easy at all to get, such work done in India, because, outside there are specific societies which are meant for copyrights. And, if you have to acquire copyright for something, there is a definite process for it. In India, when I started my research, I came to know that there is nothing like it for at least Indian literature. You either have to just write directly to the publishers, and if they revert, great. I tried that. A lot of times you don't get any revert, or you have to directly reach out to the families. And some of them, some of the poets don't have any family members, so the copyright is in question mark. Nobody knows how to reach out to it. I reached out to Sahityik Academy. I reached out to Hindi Academy, and it was very difficult, because there is lack of knowledge and there is lack of understanding per se, that what is required. So a lot of people then said कि आप ऐसे ही कर लीजिए, कोई कुछ नहीं कहेगा. So, and and I wanted to take the permissions, because this was getting recorded and released as an album. I had to do it as a mandate. So it was very difficult, but finally, from whatever possible sources were there, like for Mahadevi Verma ji, there is a trust in Uttarakhand, and unfortunately you can't, it's very difficult to reach out to them. They don't respond to mails, they don't respond to calls, there is hardly any network there. But somehow I could reach them, and over a period of 3 months I could get the permission on mail from them. So similarly from various other people, some of the permissions we never got, and so we had to give up those.
Yeah, in fact, there was one
songs.
song which we could not release. We had completely recorded the song based on the poetry, but we didn't get the right.
We didn't get the permission, so we
rights,
couldn't
yeah.
do it. So
We had
it
to
was
rewrite the
magic.
poetry. A friend
We
of ours,
chose a
Shelley.
different poem
Yeah.
then for the same music,
Yeah.
and then we created it. But yeah, so it was an interesting journey. We got to learn a lot through it. But yeah, finally we were able to do it.
No, this is a very important area, getting clearances. And a lot of our writers, especially poets, did not know that the work should be registered because
Yes.
they were very simple in their outlook, and they just got paid if the work was published and paid pittance, rupees. I know some of these writers got nothing for the work, but beautiful their work is. I think it's high time that the works of such writers are fully registered so that artists like you can make good use of it.
Yes,
That's
and
the
also
public.
they should get back whatever is the due royalty to them. Like
Yes.
for example, when we release a song, the royalty goes to the whoever is the lyricist, whoever
Actually,
is
there
the
is not a
composer.
proper royalty process in India yet, although the
It's still in
IPRS is
development.
set up, but it's
That's
still a
correct.
very
It takes a
it's-
generation. It
Yes,
takes a
yes.
generation. And I
It's
think
a-
the publishing side, where you have to get consents, where you go to distribute the royalties or whatever, it has to be gestated over a period. Because
Yes.
still a very gray area over here.
because India adopted the common law from UK. India did repeal the laws, but it's taken 10 years to come to this stage. So it's going to take a long time. But having crossed this threshold about getting consents, permission, does it give you hope that you can do better? You'll do more albums of such kind. What is
Yes.
your future hold?
So this was just a start for us when we created an album of 6 songs. After that, we have composed over 50-60 songs which we perform in our live performances, or we have created videos for YouTube. We did not go through the process of taking permissions for all the songs because we couldn't do it due to lack of bandwidth or lack of information. And so we cannot release them in albums. We cannot publish them through a record label, but we can release them as free content on YouTube.
True.
So we have created a very long list of songs and videos after this album, which is all available on YouTube. And the songs are available for free streaming and listening.
Mhm.
As and when we want to create another album, then we have to again go through the process of taking permissions. But we are very hopeful that once, for us, this is something which is a path of life. Both of us are going to do music and poetry project for the rest of our lives, no matter what other works we are doing. He's into advertising, I'm writing stories for OTT and other things, but music and poetry project is something very close to our heart, and we are going to keep composing more music, keep producing great these legendary poems in the form of music. We will keep doing this for the rest of our life.
You must have bread and butter income to support your work.
That as well, because as it is, it's difficult to earn from independent music, and there are not so many. As we were still performing and doing some concerts, etc., before the
pandemic
lockdown.
happened. Yeah.
Last 2 years, that is also completely gone for a toss.
Let's talk about live events. Now, for the last 2 years, as you mentioned, pandemic has taken toll on every musician, artist in the world.
Yes.
And slowly, the doors are opening. The venues are slowly opening. There's no replacement. There's no alternative to live music. I mean, people have done thousands and thousands of virtual performances, but that unfortunately is a short-lived. It doesn't have a life of its own. A musician requires interaction with live audience. You had performed live prior to the pandemic, and you have done some virtual performances. What's the difference? What is it that you want to do once the pandemic is lifted? The lockdown in India is lifted. How would you go forward?
Well, definitely we want to perform live. There is no replacement, as you said. And luckily, from November, December, there are some concerts which are now lining up. Festivals are opening up in some way, and with all the controls and all the required restrictions which are required for corona control. But the good thing is that, yeah, as in, uh, you know, uh, it was very difficult for a lot of artists. We have seen this in the lockdown. There is no source of income for thousands of artists. Their only dependence is on live performance. A lot of folk artists, there was nowhere to go, and there was no other revenue source. We still have something else. We both of us do some other kind of music, some other kind of work as well. But there are a lot of artists who had nothing,
They were
and
completely dependent on live music. Yeah.
exactly, not only the live music had gone for a toss, but also the sessions, recording sessions, because movies were not happening, nothing else was happening. So it was a very tough period. And what is the difference? Huge difference. You just don't feel connected. You don't feel any exchange of energy happening, which is very important for live artists.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
you know,
like right now, also we are looking at the camera.
we are looking
We
at
would
a
have
small,
rather been happier if it had
rectangle.
people around.
I
And
think
connected to
Joel
us.
and Chinmayi, things are going to change. I think there is
Yes.
a big conference taking place in Mumbai from 27th to 29th. It's all about music. Now, this is a platform for discussion. A lot of people are going to talk about live music.
But that is also happening online.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true, but it is relevant to have such conferences because
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah,
Next.
totally.
But tell us rather, who have been your audience in prior to the pandemic? Who are your audience? Can you identify your audience?
So our audience, one is the live concerts. Whatever we have done has mostly been into literature festivals and some college festivals, etc. Uh, and the audience has been anybody and everybody, irrespective of the age. Like,
Yeah.
it's really fortunate for us that irrespective of the age, a lot of people have connected with us who are in general, interested in literature or arts or poetry. So there is no age barrier. We were very surprised and very happily surprised to see. I performed in Delhi at a couple of colleges and even in schools. And
I think Jaipur Lit Fest was the last proper live performance.
yes, but that is a literature festival, so you expect that it will be a great
Yeah.
response and it will be great audience. But a lot of places where we did not expect at all, school kids, college level kids, they also love it. People across the age, from their 50s, 60s to 17, 18 years old. If people are appreciating such music, then that gives you a lot of confidence. So far, colleges, schools, literature festivals, music festivals, we are now performing at this Kabira Mahotsav in Banaras in November. So totally different audience. It will be for open masses as well, and as well as the delegates. So it will be a mixed audience. We performed at Kumbh, where the audience was completely, the general masses, and we didn't know what are they going to appreciate and what are they going to like. But they liked it and they appreciate it, because if they are not able to connect with the poetry, then music they are able to connect with. If they are not able to relate with music, then poetry holds them. So, both kinds of people are there who are interested in music, who are interested in poetry. And that is a good thing.
You came to London in 2018.
Yes.
Tell us about your experience. How did you receive the London audience or UK audience?
Oh, it was beautiful. Our performance at Rich Mix is something we still remember.
Yes.
Very happily we talk about it, because it was a great event. Everything was beautiful. The ambience, the lights, the sound. The audience was really engaged, well engaged. And we thought that, there are a lot of foreigners and they may not understand the language. But
I don't think language
language
is
is
a barrier.
not a barrier.
Yeah.
We realized it
Music
then.
transcends.
That was just the start of our journey. We had started our live performances with the London tour, and it was such a thrilling experience that, you know, okay, foreigners also understand our music without understanding the language. So this is great. So it was a great experience, and we would, you know, we really look forward to come back to London and perform in some other cities as well, where we have, you know, like Vatayan has been so kind to us. There are other societies which promote Indian literature, Indian culture, and we are dying to reach out to them now and actually perform live once things open up.
Well, lovely. We hope to have you here someday.
Yes.
Please take us to the next song that you have for us.
Okay. What do we do now?
जीवन की आपात.
Yes.
By
Okay.
Harvansh Rai Bachchan.
Harivansh Rai Bachchan. So this is a beautiful song. जीवन की आपाधापी में कब वक्त मिला कुछ देर कहीं पर बैठ कभी ये सोच सकूं जो किया कहा माना उसमें क्या बुरा भला. So we just don't have any time these days. Luckily, Corona gave us a lot of time to sit down and think, you know, who am I? What is this life? But otherwise, people in cities hardly find any time to think about life and the larger picture and the bigger scene of life, you know. So this is the song that talks about that by Harivansh Rai Bachchan. Didn't we talk?
Yeah. जीवन की आपाधापी में जीवन की आपाधापी में कब वक्त मिला कुछ देर कहीं पर बैठ कभी ये सोच सकूं जो किया कहाँ माना उसमें क्या बुरा भला जो किया कहाँ माना उसमें क्या बुरा भला जो किया कहाँ माना उसमें क्या बुरा भला जो किया कहाँ माना उसमें क्या बुरा भला. जिस दिन मेरी चेतना जगी मैंने देखा मैं खड़ा हुआ हूँ इस दुनिया के मेले.
हर कोई यहाँ पर एक भुलावे में भूला हर एक लगा है अपनी अपनी लेने में कुछ देर रहा हक्का बक्का वो चक्का सा आ गया कहाँ क्या करूँ यहाँ जाऊँ किस जा कुछ देर रहा हक्का बक्का वो चक्का सा आ गया कहाँ क्या करूँ यहाँ जाऊँ किस जा फिर एक तरफ से आया ही तो धक्का सा मैंने भी बहना शुरू किया उस रेले में जीवन की आपाधापी में कब वक्त मिला कुछ देर कहीं पर बैठ कभी सोच सकूं जो किया कहाँ पाना उसमें क्या बुरा भला जो किया कहाँ पाना उसमें क्या बुरा भला जो किया कहाँ माना उसमें क्या बुरा भला जो किया कहाँ माना उसमें क्या बुरा भला. जितना भड़कीला रंग रंगीला था मानस के अंदर उतनी ही कमजोरी थी मेला जितना भड़कीला रंग रंगीला था, मानस के अंदर उतनी ही कमजोरी थी, जितनी ज्यादा संचित करने की ख्वाहिश थी, उतनी ही छोटे अपने करके छोरी थी। जिसको समझा था सोना वो मिट्टी निकली, जिसको समझा था आंसू वो मोती निकला। जीवन की आपाधापी में कब वक्त मिला कुछ देर कहीं पर बैठ कभी सोच सकूं, जो किया कहा माना उसने क्या बुरा भला, जो किया कहा माना उसने क्या बुरा भला, जो किया कहा माना उसने क्या बुरा भला, जो किया कहा माना उसने क्या बुरा भला।
Wow, wow. That's an excellent composition, Chinmayi and Joel. I think the future looks good with the poetry of our great masters and people like yourself giving it a fresh approach. Both of you complement each other so well as friends, as husband and wife, as co-composers. Now tell us, do you fight in between sessions, or do you disagree, or how does that happen? Can you just...
Absolutely, we are no different from any other couple. We fight as well, but the good part is that I think the fundamental worldview is the same when it comes to both of us, and our thought process about the music aspect as well, merges fairly well most of the times. So there are disagreements, but we don't end up really fighting. If you say disagreements are there, and then they eventually get resolved.
Okay. And
as
you
you could figure out, I'm the quieter one here. So
yeah, one of us is very quiet and one of us is not so quiet. So, but that's how it works.
But having been followed by so many people, including I, you have a third person in your life, your cat.
The cats.
We have two cats.
Two cats. Are they musical? They must be.
Extremely musical.
So whenever I'm working in the studio, they are always here, and they enjoy music actually. So they do not disturb when I'm recording something live. So they're very aware as to what's happening, and they love music. So
they love music. They hate hip hop for some reason. They love our kind of music. Luckily, every time we play something which is very harsh or metal or hip hop,
they don't like loud.
They don't
music.
like very loud sounds.
They're sensitive. They are sensitive like
very
human
sensitive
beings.
cats.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. We are running out of time, but I would like to add that you have a last song for us by Kabir. Could you lead us out, and I'll come back after the song.
Yes.
Sure. So this song is one of our favorites of Kabir. Kabir, Meera, Sant Raidas, we've composed some of their songs. And this song is called Tu Ka Tu. The song is basically talking about, that supernatural, that superpower, or whoever we call God. In our own ways, we pray to him, and the God which is in all of us, not Ram, not Ganesh, not Shankar, but the God that resides in us, in our souls. So tu ka tu, matlab tu hi tu hai. Jahan bhi dekho, bas tu hi tu hai. And Kabir says it in his own sadhukari way, in his own way, in his own language, that चोर भी तू है, पुलिस भी तू है, चोरी भी तू करता है, पुलिस भी तू करता है, नर भी तू है, नारी भी तू है. तो वो तो खैर फेमिनिस्ट तो थे ही कबीर, बट ही सेज कि फिर हमको दो क्यों दिखते हैं, और हाथी भी तू है, चींटी भी तू है. तो इतने सारे भेद क्यों है? बहुत सारे contradictions को use करके Kabir is saying that the universe is just one and God is just one. So let's hear it.
Lovely.
So this is a very sensitive instrument.
Like me.
What do you call it?
Dotara.
Dotara.
It's called a Dotara. And
Let it be.
so basically it's a Bengali folk instrument.
Yes, yes.
And it is used with a lot of baul music. You might have seen it at some point. It's a very sensitive instrument because of the AC. It gets detuned very quickly.
Okay.
So, and Joel has much sharper ears when it comes to tuning instruments. So
that
he
we
has
noticed.
he's a multi-instrumentalist. He has spent so much time with string instruments, and he can practically play every string instrument which is in our house. We have around 40 string instruments in our house. Wow. It's full of them. So
strings for life.
Strings for life, yes. But this was great. I'll just add to it while Joel is tuning that, Divyaji, thank you so much for inviting us. I was, when we mentioned our London tour, I was remembering that how it was a very small thing which Jay and Vatayan were connected, and Jay was kind enough to take us to the Oxford University, and we became a part of that beautiful small, beautiful event. It was great because it led us to a lot of friendships and bonds which are still there. So we are very thankful to all.
It'll grow.
Thank you.
You have an audience in us, Chinmayi, and it is going to grow, I believe.
I hope so. We hope so. Thank you so much. But more than audience, we also look at it as a cultural bond and as a friendship. So that is also going to be there, hopefully. Thank you so much.
Please lead it out.
अरे इनका भेद बता मेरे अवधूत, इनका भेद बता मेरे अवधूत, अच्छी करनी कर ले तू, डाली फूल जगत के माही, जहाँ देखा वहाँ तू, जहाँ देखा वहाँ तू का तू। अरे हाथी में हाथी बन बैठा, चींटी में है छोटा तू, होए महावत ऊपर बैठा, हकन वाला तू का तू, हकन वाला तू का तू। अरे चोरों के संग चोरी करता, बदमाशों में भेड़ों तो, चोरों के संग चोरी करता, बदमाशों में भेड़ों तो, चोरी करके तू भग जावे, पकड़ने वाला तू का तू, पकड़ने वाला तू का तू। दाता में दाता बन जावे, भिखारी में भेड़ो तू, दाता में दाता बन जावे, भिखारी में भेड़ो तू, मंगता होकर मांगन लागे, देने वाला तू का तू, देने वाला तू का तू। हरे नर नारी में हो, लागे राखने वाला तू का तू, राखन वाला तू का तू।
Wow, wow, wow. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Chinmayi and Joel, I must say special thank you from all of us all over the world, especially
Thank you
on
so
behalf
much.
of Vatayan.
Thank you so much, Jay.
You're doing remarkable work, and I assure you my support is there for you.
Thank you.
And you're doing some, this is, you're both acting as a catalyst. Also remember that you're reviving the language amongst the younger generation through music. I think that is the most important part, and the way you compose and write music for these beautiful words, I think you ought to be congratulated and supported more. So we
Thank
look
you so
forward
much.
to
Thank you.
we look forward to your journey. Thank you. And
Thank you.
everybody who is logged on can see this program again on YouTube. And again, on behalf of Vatayan, special thank you. And on October the 2nd, there is a special program, Relevance of Gandhi amongst the younger generation. Do log on. And thank you, Divya, for inviting me to host tonight's
Thank
program.
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Divya ji.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.